Hello everyone, this is Aussie's and I am doing the final part in my series on looking at all of the states and territories in depth, considering the 2025 Australian federal election. You're probably sick of me by now. I did leave these to the last minute, but I will just go through this one very quickly. This one is going to be Tasmania, WA, and Queensland. Let's start with Tasmania. So, Lyons is the most marginal seat in the state, and there's been a couple of good polls for Rebecca White suggesting that she will retain this seat. In fact, I'm hearing a lot of sort of internal rumblings that it looks like there is going to be a bit of a swing to Labor in Tasmania in general, in not only Lyons, but also in Braddon and Bass. The coalition are worried they might actually lose both of these seats. Braddon has a very big margin. It has a margin of like 8%, but the incumbent has retired, and the Libs have put this guy in called Mal Hingston, and he's been exposed as like a guy pretending to be like a battler, but actually he owns like this massive property portfolio. And then he made these sort of statements saying something to the effect of like, back in my day, people used to go pick fruit for $10 an hour, and people extrapolated that to mean that he thinks people should be happy to earn $10 an hour. He's also said that he's going to like reverse every single decision of the Albanese government, which, people have attacked him on because he's going to, get rid of like the industrial relations reforms that Labor's put in. I mean, we already knew that the coalition were going to do that, so he's just sort of said the quiet part out loud. Yeah, I think this could swing pretty far back to the Labour Party this election. It's going to be a really big moment if the Labour Party are able to take this one back. There's also a pretty high profile candidate for the Labour Party. I believe she is currently a senator, like sort of coming to try for the House, which is Anne Urquhart. I'm definitely pronouncing that one wrong. So I don't expect the Labour Party to pick this one up, but I do expect that it is going to be close and there is going to be a big swing there. So Bass is the home of Bridget Archer, who is this famous moderate of the Liberal Party who, especially during the Scott Morrison government, crossed the floor on a couple of occasions. I think there was that religious discrimination bill where she crossed the floor to support amendments to protect trans kids. She also broke ranks with, I think, everyone else in the coalition and supported a censure motion into Scott Morrison. She definitely is a different flavor of Liberal Party from the rest of the camp, I feel. This seat has been known to like chuck out incumbents in a lot of elections, but it actually swung the other way last election into Bridget Archer's favor. I know that this seat isn't necessarily very progressive, and that sort of goes against like the whole like appeal of Bridget Archer, but from what I've been told by Kevin Bonham, people do respect members of parliament who are prepared to sort of cross the floor on special occasions to vote against their party. It's like a uniquely sort of like Tasmanian thing that people are sort of proud of. So I do think that her personal vote will negate any possible swings going on against her in Bass. I think she'll probably keep her seat, but it is a very small margin. As for Franklin, this is like on the more progressive side of Tasmania down south, and there is a big challenge by the independent Peter George, mostly going against like Labor Party support of the salmon farming industry, which I think is obviously, a big money maker for Tasmania, but there's definitely environmental issues. The Greens get a pretty high vote here. I think that's mostly going to be cannibalized by the independent, and I think probably that independent will make the two candidate preferred. I think the Labour Party will probably be safe against that independent because the Liberal Party is directing preferences to the Labour Party. There was a poll where Labor seemed to be in a little bit of trouble a while ago, but that independent really does need the Liberal Party preferences, I think, to have a chance of winning. So, yeah, I think maybe we'll get like something like a 55-45 Labor versus independent result here in Franklin, but this is the most serious challenger, apart from maybe Bean, for an independent to possibly take a seat off of Labor as opposed to the coalition. And then finally, we have Clark, which isn't really worth talking about because Andrew Wilkie's the member, and he's going to be probably the member until he retires. And when he eventually does, this will probably be a seat which the Greens target. Andrew Wilkie himself is an ex-Green. It's like literally one of the safest seats in the country, and definitely the safest that an independent holds. So as for the Senate in Tasmania, I think it's just going to be a status quo result. Like One Nation might give Jackie Lambie a little bit of a run for their money. I don't know what's going to happen to the Liberal Party vote. I think it'll be down, but it'll be easily enough for them to get 2 quotas, one would expect. Jackie Lambie herself is up for election this time. She wasn't last time, but there has been some sort of controversies amongst her party. But she obviously has a fair bit of popularity in Tasmania, and I think she can better sort of soak up the preferences needed in order to get that final seat. Even though Pauline Hanson's daughter is running, this will be the least likely seat for the One Nation Party to pick up out of all the states. There just isn't the existence of like these right wing minor parties that we see in like mainland Australia. It just doesn't exist to nearly the same level as mainland Australia. And I think also maybe Tasmania isn't as concerned about immigration as well. So that's Tasmania for you. I think it's going to be a status quo result in both the House and the Senate, but there is a good chance that Labor could pick up either Braddon or Bass, and then an outside chance of Labor losing Lyons, or maybe even losing Franklin to an independent. On to Western Australia. So, according to the polls, Labor are doing pretty well in WA and might even be doing a little bit better than they were last time. In the most recent WA state election, there was a two-party preferred of around 57-43 to the Labor Party in WA, which was like a 13% swing against them since the last state election, but it's still a pretty remarkable result. The polls are indicating that the Labor Party probably won't replicate that result in WA, but they'll get pretty close, at least probably within 1 or 2% of that. There has been talk from the coalition that they're going to win back Tangney, and there was some poll a couple of weeks ago that suggested that. I should also mention that there was polls that suggest that the Labor Party could pick up Braddon too, but yeah, I don't trust seat polling a ton. I think it could be pretty unreliable, and I don't trust that the coalition are going to pick up Tangney. Like this seat in state election boundaries got like 56-44 to Labor in the state election. They got a brand new member. The Chinese vote is not really swinging significantly to the coalition. WA itself is not swinging to the coalition. I just don't see a world where the coalition pick this one up. It seems very unlikely to me. So the fact that the coalition are saying that they think they're going to pick this one up actually bodes pretty badly for them, in my opinion. As for Moore, this one is going to be very close, and I think that's because Ian Goodenough, the former member, lost pre-selection, decided to run as an independent, and then is running with an open how to vote card. Most people suspect that he's probably not going to get into the two-candidate preferred, but enough of his preferences might go to the Labor Party that the Labor Party could actually take this one. In the WA state election, the Labor Party got a two-party preferred of about 52-48 on these boundaries. And you would expect with this sort of like, candidate controversy, Labor could benefit enough that they could win the seat. It is like a pretty wealthy area, but we have got indication that wealthy voters are sort of moving towards the Labor Party. Maybe like that capital gains tax thing might scare off some people. But yeah, it's one of those ones which I think is going to be extremely close, and the Labour Party do have a great chance of picking that one up. Bullwinkle, this is a brand new seat, doesn't have a current member or anything, obviously, and has a notional margin of 3% to the Labour Party. This one in the state election, on boundaries, Labour Party seem to have just lost the two-party preferred, but it's kind of messy because it's part of the seat, it's against the Nationals, and part of it is against the WA Libs. I don't know with the Nationals running a high-profile candidate if the fact that they're running will make it worse or better for the Liberal Party. Like you could say like, oh, they're running, they might take votes off who might otherwise go to Labor. and then deliver it back to the Liberals. Or you could say they'll take off people who would otherwise vote for the Liberals and then direct to Labour. I think with the live sheep export ban thing, this one is more in danger than the margins suggest. Also, sort of like the general outer suburban opposition to the Labour Party. But as I said, we are expecting a bit of a swing to the Labour Party in WA. There's also sort of an older seat too, which probably should help the coalition. And I know that like cost of living is not so bad in this place compared to a lot of other parts of the country, according to there was like this ABC survey a couple of months ago. So it's a really difficult call, this one. The coalition think that they can pick this one up. I think it's a bit of a toss up. Pretty similar to Moore, really. I think both of these seats can really go either way. Curtin, I think at this point, Kate Cheney is pretty safe. Like the rest of the Teals, the area that she represents, it doesn't really feel like it's like moving to the right at any speed, really. Like, look, even Labour had a swing towards them in 2019. It's a really like rich electorate, and from what I've seen in polls, yeah, like Labour's actually getting a two-party preferred increase in these kind of areas. It's also like, not like really old people as well, which I think also helps the Labour Party. So if it helps Labour, it helps the independent, because a lot of these teal independents are in a way sort of a surrogate for a Labour Party candidate. So there's a couple of other sort of possible seats. There's like Canning, which is held by Andrew Hastie, who might very well be the next leader of the Liberal Party after this election. I've heard some things about how he's been sort of missing on the campaign. I don't know if that means he's been missing in his seat, or he just hasn't sort of like shown up in press conferences very often. That might just indicate that he doesn't want to get too associated with Peter Dutton in case he wants to become the leader. I'm not exactly sure, but he does have a pretty high profile, and if he didn't have that high profile, I would assume that this seat would have gone to the Labour Party at the last federal election. And then there's Forrest, where there's like some kind of independent challenger. But from what I've heard, the threat to the Liberal Party here has dissipated in the last week or two. So I think that will probably remain with the Libs. So my guess is with WA, the Labour Party should maintain sort of a net stable amount of seats if we consider that the Bullwinkle is a Labour seat. I think there's a good chance that Labour could win both of them. There's also a chance that Labour could lose both of them, but I think they'll probably take at least one of these two, either Moore or Bullwinkle. And then they have an outside chance of also winning Canning. I just want to quickly talk about these seats in regional WA. Obviously, the Nationals have had a higher profile ever since they became the official opposition in the 2021 WA election. It doesn't look like the Nationals even ran in O'Connor last time, but it will be interesting to see how they do this time around. And just a refresher for anyone who doesn't know, the WA Nats are not in an official coalition with the New South Wales Nats or the LNP or the Country Libs. Quickly, Fremantle, Kate Hewlett is running after her attempt at the state election. I think she'll probably make the two candidate preferred, but I doubt that she's going to win. And in Perth, there is a very good chance that the Greens will make the two candidate preferred here. But of course, I don't think that they're going to win. So Queensland, you would think that there's a lot to talk about, but I don't actually think that there's that much to talk about here, because a lot of these seats are just pretty safe for the coalition. There is a couple of like teal challenges in like Fisher, Fairfax, Moncrief, McPherson. I don't think they're really going to get anywhere this election. Leichhardt, the previous candidate, Warren Entsch, retired. The new candidate has gone to trouble for some like pro-Trump stuff, but I just don't think this is the kind of place that would be swinging towards the Labour Party. If there is a swing on in Queensland, it swung pretty heavily against the Labour Party at the state election. Colin Boyce in Flynn, he's really anti-renewables, but I think like people in that seat probably appreciate that anyway. These places, I just think like they just really love Dutton's shit that he's selling. Like, you might think like Dutton is like an unlikable character in the rest of Australia, but I generally think most of Queensland thinks he's like A-okay. So I don't think it's worth talking about a lot of these places. You could probably talk about whether in like Maranoa or Wright, One Nation is going to make the two candidate prefer, but there's no way they're going to win because Labour preferences are going to go to the LNP over One Nation. Blair, Labour's going to keep that because, yeah, hey, you would think it probably would go to the coalition, right? Because it's like an outer suburban seat in Queensland and stuff, but it just has like a lot of young voters. That's the thing. It's got a lot of really young families in that seat. And even in 2019, the coalition didn't win this one. Dixon, a lot has been made about this seat, but I think Dutton is ultimately going to be fine. It might not be called until like quite later in the night. Keep in mind that last election, they actually called the seat as a loss for Dutton and then sort of changed their mind. So yeah, it might be pretty late that we get the result for that one. These green seats here, the only one that I think really is in focus at this point is Brisbane. It looks like probably the Greens are going to get a significantly higher preference vote in Ryan and Griffith, that they probably won't have to worry about the Labor Party. But as for Brisbane, the YouGov MRPs have been really bullish towards the Labor Party in this seat. Redbridge less so. I've had commenters say that like Stephen Bates has been, everywhere in the seat, and then I've had other commenters who say like, oh yeah, no way, the Greens are going to win this seat. At this point, I think I just have to go with my gut and say I think that the Greens will probably get a sweep towards them in this seat. There was this Demos AU big sort of survey pamphlet, and it did suggest that in seats where the Greens are already doing well, they're going to do even better this election. I'm just going to take that as like the Greens are going to do all right. I've heard that they've been sort of sandbagging in this area. That might mean that like they're worried about this. I mean, I'm sure that they're worried about it, but it might also mean that, they're prepared to put in the resources to make sure that this seat stays in the Greens' hands. It would be pretty humiliating if the Greens lost a seat like this, I think, to the Labor Party after the Labor Party have been like sort of so moderate this term. So I think the Greens are going to keep Brisbane, Griffith, and Ryan, but with Brisbane, I think it's mostly just vibes for me at this point, because there's a lot of indications that probably the Labor Party are going to pick that one up. I will concede. So Bonner is one actually that has been floated as a possible Labor pickup. Labor has been bullish of this seat, and it's also one that the YouGov MRP gave a surprise result for the Labor Party. This guy's been in the seat like forever, apparently, this Ross Vasta guy, but it's like the kind of seat which you would expect, like maybe over time would trend towards Labour. I mean, it hasn't really been doing that. Wow, Labour used to actually hold this seat. Well, that was under Kevin Rudd. But, it is a pretty sort of wealthy seat, and it does have a sort of, like a sort of Gen X kind of population. And I think that kind of demographic is swinging towards the Labour Party. It does kind of remind me of sort of like a seat where if like a Teal ran or something, they might do pretty well. It's a pretty well-off electorate, pretty like highly educated. So I don't think the Labor Party are gonna win this one this time round, but that might be one for them to look at next election. Like the polls are pointing to there to be a swing towards Labor in Queensland, but I just don't really believe those polls. But if it is going to eventuate, it's not going to be out here. I don't think those swings. I think it is going to be in a place like Bonner. So that could be a surprise on the night. Ford was one that the Redbridge MRPs earlier was saying like could be close, but it's not looking like it anymore. Longman, I haven't really heard about like Labor putting much resources into trying to win this one back. I don't think it's the kind of seat that would be swinging towards Labor in this cycle. And somebody was asking about Moreton if the Greens have a chance. Like, I was thinking about this, like, I don't know if it was like a year or two ago or something, but yeah, absolutely not at this point. Like, I don't know if even the Greens are going to like get a swing towards them in this seat. I mean, they might. It does have like a pretty young population, but the Greens already have like a 20% primary vote. So there's like a really outside chance that the Greens will enter the two-party vote here, but yeah, probably not, I'd say. Oh, I just realized that I haven't even talked about the WA Senate. So we'll do the WA and the Queensland Senate together. Oh, by the way, Bob Catt is keeping his seat. He'll probably retire at the next election, I assume, but for now he's keeping it. So WA, it looks like that the One Nation Party is polling like pretty high here. and it's ultimately going to be between the third Labour candidate and the One Nation candidate. Like, I know that like the polls are pointing that there might be a swing towards Labour in the two-party preferred in WA, and you would expect, oh, they got a 3-seat last time, so they should be easily get another one. But it's just that the One Nation primary vote is just so high. I think probably Labour will probably have about a surplus of like 7%, something like that. One Nation will probably get about, I don't know, 9%. And then there is an existence of like right-wing minor parties in WA. There's also the existence of legalized cannabis too, and I saw in that Demos AU survey that they're actually doing pretty decent in WA. So it's a really hard call. I'm doing my final prediction for the whole country later this morning. I'll make a decision on whether I'm giving that to One Nation or Labour. But yeah, it's very close between the two of them. And then on to Queensland. I do think the two-party preferred is probably going to stay about the same. I don't think the coalition primary vote is going to go that much higher than what they got last election. They did get like a 3.7% swing against them though. So, maybe it will go up to maybe like, I don't know, 36 or 37. But I still don't know if that's enough for them to get 3 quotas, especially if the Labour Party isn't too far off 2 quotas. Say they get like 25% again. There's always sort of legalized cannabis preferences that Labour can sort of harvest. I mean, the Greens probably needs preferences too. They're probably going to have maybe like a tad swing against them or something this election. The other alternative is, and I floated this a little bit in my Senate video, that the coalition get something like, I don't know, 33%. Hanson gets like, I don't know, 8%. Rennick gets like 5%. And Labour gets like 23%. There is a chance that both One Nation and Rennick kind of collect these minor right-wing preferences. Both of the major parties get knocked out. And then basically just it's Rennick and One Nation left over, and they just get those last 2 seats. Very, very outside chance. It could happen. It could happen. I think that's pretty unlikely. I think in Queensland, we're going to see both a status quo result in the House and the Senate. There will be 2 Labour senators, 2 coalition, 1 One Nation, and 1 Greens, and Jared Rennick will miss out. Sorry, Reddick bros, maybe not this time, but yeah, Albo might be increasing the size of the Senate, and Rennick might be able to have another go at the next election. So before we go, I'll just show you what I'm talking about with these swings. So in Western Australia, Bludger Track is predicting like a 1.5% swing to the Labour Party. And then in Queensland, it's predicting like over a 1% swing to Labour. I wouldn't be surprised if both of these just end up being sort of like a status quo sort of swing, really. I think generally the poll bludger is overestimating Labour's two-party preferred. I don't think it's going to be this high. I think it's going to be at least 1% lower than this. They're predicting a 1.1% swing to the Labour Party. I don't see this happening. I don't also see this swing towards them in New South Wales probably eventuating either. Definitely not a 3% swing in South Australia, maybe like a little bit less. Anyway, I'm sort of getting off track here. Yeah, I don't think too much is really going to be happening in these 3 states, really. Tasmania, I think, probably remains status quo. Queensland remains status quo. And WA, the only thing that might change is that Labour might swap Bullwinkle for more, or they might keep both, or they might lose both. Apart from that, these 3 states, not much movement happening. There was definitely some sort of interesting contests, but ultimately I think they will remain pretty much the same. And then, of course, One Nation have a decent chance of a Senate seat in WA. That's all for this one, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later today for my full and final prediction. Goodbye.